Good morning. Hello. Is there some Monty? Oh, okay. Is it up? Good morning, everyone. I know we're all milling around still, but I just wanted to let you know we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. So if you could please take your seats, that would be great. Good morning, everyone. I know we're still trickling in. This is why I love Seattle, because Seattle operates on Korean people's time. That was a joke. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sustainable Growth Summit hosted by the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. My name is Hayo Kim, and I am honored to speak to you this morning as a member of the President's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. I serve on the Advisory Commission representing Seattle and the Pacific Northwest region, and I'm joined today by several of my fellow commissioners who flew in literally from across the country. Daphne Kwok from California. Daphne, if you want to stand up. Daphne is our fearless leader as chair of the President's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Kamuala Enos from Hawaii. Kam, where are you? Unmi Song from Chicago. On October 14th, 2009, President Barack Obama signed an executive order reestablishing the White House Initiative on AAPIs. The purpose of the initiative is to improve the quality of life for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders by helping to increase access to and participation in federal programs and services, especially where AAPIs are currently underserved. As part of this initiative, the President established the Advisory Commission to serve as the eyes and ears of our community members. And to meet our mission, the initiative has been hosting roundtables, summits, meetings, gatherings all across the country on topics that relate to the health, prosperity, and well-being of our community. Today's Sustainable Growth Summit touches on one such topic that also happens to be a popular buzzword of the moment: sustainability. Most people think that sustainability is about going green or environmentalism and simply stop there. In fact, sustainability is much more holistic. It's about reconciling economic, environmental, and social demands. It's about making sure that our communities are still viable 30 years from now and with a quality of life greater than today's. Now, don't tell me that's not an AAPI cultural value, that our communities 30 years from now are still viable and that the quality of life is greater than today's. Sustainability is about making sure that that all Americans have equal access to education, jobs, fair housing, and healthcare, so that all our communities can flourish. And for our AAPI community, sustainability is also inherent in many of our cultures. It's also becoming increasingly important. Last night, some of the commissioners and staff were briefing about today's summit. And Unmi Song, who is Korean American, jokingly said, you know, Korean American mothers are the original recyclers. And that's true, I think, for many of our diverse AAPI cultures when it comes to the roots of what sustainability is all about. From 2000 to 2010, AAPIs were the fastest growing racial group in the country. The AAPI population increased by 43% during this decade alone. This population growth creates an urgent need to get AAPIs to the table and engaged in the national dialogue about what it takes to promote economic opportunities, what it takes to address health disparities in our communities, what it takes to provide decent and affordable housing, and more. In short, what it takes to make all of our communities sustainable, which is the topic of today's summit. Our gathering here today would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, proving once again the importance of public-private partnerships. We'd like to thank the Port of Seattle, Puget Sound Energy, Gensler, an architectural firm, the law firm of Riddell Williams, the Bullitt Foundation, and J.P. Morgan Chase and Company. Please join me in thanking them with a round of applause. We'd also like to acknowledge two wonderful entities that are co-hosting today's summit. North Seattle Community College, and in particular, I'd like to recognize the leadership of President Mark Matsui at North Seattle Community College, his facilities director, Monty, and all of the staff and volunteers, too. Monty, you're my new hero. The other co-host for today is the Washington State Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs, represented here by Kendi Yamaguchi, and I believe a couple of the commissioners, too. I know Lula Pritchard is in the audience. I'm not sure if, I can't see that fast. Thank you. And helping us in the outreach as well was the Washington State Office of Minority and Women Business Enterprises, and I know Kathy's in the audience with us. So thank you so much for all of your help in co-hosting this event. We're going to hear from them shortly, but let me close by saying thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. On behalf of all of the members of the President's Advisory Commission and the staff of the White House Initiative on AAPIs, we hope that every person in this room will leave today's summit with at least one new idea or one new contact that will help you contribute to making our society a more sustainable and equitable one for AAPIs and for all Americans. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite up Kendi Yamaguchi, Executive Director of the Washington State Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs. Kendi?
On behalf of the State of Washington and the Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs, I would like to welcome all of you to the Sustainable Growth Summit. I would like to thank the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and North Seattle Community College for hosting this event to raise awareness on opportunities for our communities. And I would like to acknowledge Commissioner Hayo Kim, who played a very pivotal role in bringing this event to our great state today. And our Washington State Commissioners, and real briefly as well, our Washington State Commissioners, Chair Jagdish Sharma, Lua Pritchard, and Debutada Dash for joining us as well. In Washington State, there are over 674,000 Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Our state has one of the fastest growing AAPI populations in terms of the country. In our state, we have over 47 ethnic groups speaking over 100 languages and dialects. The Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs, often known as CAPA, is honored to partner on this event. We are the oldest and most established commission in the nation, over 36 years, in advocating for the improvement of the well-being of APAs by ensuring their access to participation in government, business, education, and other areas. Part of our mission is to aid the community in obtaining governmental services. And with today's event, we are fulfilling that mission in linking our community to services and opportunities. Today is truly an exciting day. Raising awareness for our community on opportunities relating to sustainable growth is critical to the success of our future. Programs that help our community develop a clean energy economy, create green jobs, and foster a healthy environment is just the beginning. I wish you a successful event, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you, and now I have the pleasure to introduce Jill Wakefield, Chancellor of Seattle Community College.
Well, thank you very much, Kendi, and welcome to North Seattle Community College and the Seattle Community Colleges, the largest and the most diverse community college district in the state of Washington. Now, for those of you who have been listening to the news today, I just don't want you to forget that community colleges are really part of the solution to this jobs issue that we have. And so there are some issues, and we know that we can play a really important part in retraining our workforce. Seattle Community Colleges is fortunate to have an outstanding board of trustees, my bosses, and we have two with us today. Trustee Albert Shen, who also serving as photographer. Thank you for being here. And Trustee Gayatri Essay. Thank you for being here. Seattle Community Colleges serves 51,000 students each year. We're the second largest institution of higher education in the state of Washington, second only to the University of Washington. We reflect the values of Seattle and our citizens, so recognizing the responsibility of being an educational leader in sustainability and a good steward of the environment makes sense for us. In 2008, a grassroots initiative by our college deans was expanded into the Chancellor's Sustainability Initiative, or as we call the CSI, which includes all four of our college communities. Through this initiative, we've developed a district-wide strategic plan and benchmarks to really infuse sustainability throughout the curriculum and our facilities. Each college has implemented active recycling, commute trip reduction, alternative transportation, and energy reduction programs, and has developed courses and programs that address sustainability. So it's very appropriate that a summit on sustainable growth be held on one of our campuses, particularly one that identifies opportunities for members of the Asian Pacific, American Pacific Islander communities. The Seattle Community Colleges has strong ties to the AAPI community. Half our students are students of color, and 17% are Asian American students. The diversity of our employees is also among the highest among colleges in this state. 36% among full-time faculty, 17% is Asian American. Earlier this year, we co-sponsored an event commemorating protests made by Asian American students 40 years ago. The former protesters, some who are here today, grew into our community and education leaders. They reminded us that our colleges have been forerunners for many decades. In leadership, Seattle Community Colleges hired the first Asian American administrator in the state system. In curriculum, our Asian American Studies program was the first in the Northwest. Sociology of Asian Americans was the first in the Northwest. And Asian American literature was the first taught at a college or university in our community. We're also reminded how important it is to maintain this program toward equity and equality. I joined the college a little after the protests 40 years ago, but throughout my career, I've always been aware how important it is to have our colleges reflect the students we serve. We know it leads to student success. So in closing, I'm proud to share an initiative that has gained national attention and is close to my heart. At South Seattle Community College, AAPI students make up 25% of the student population and a majority of students of color. And many of them weren't succeeding a few years ago. So in 2008, when I was president at South, they were awarded a $2.4 million U.S. Department of Education grant to improve the success of low-income and underserved API students. We were among the first colleges in the country to be awarded. The college developed a comprehensive approach, working with families, clustered learning communities. We developed a web-based virtual resource center, peer support techniques, and pathways to four-year universities. The approach has been a great success. Just one example, the transition rate of English as a second language students from basic education to college level increased from 5 to 40%. And many students are currently in professional and transfer programs. It's been a national model. The higher education resource and the best practices that are evolved are being adapted to aid all students throughout our country. And finally, Seattle Community College was designated as U.S. Department of Education Asian American Native American Pacific Islander Serving Institution. So we continue to make progress. Now, our next speaker was responsible for that grant. He serves as board chair for the new Asian Pacific Islander American Association of Colleges and Universities, which will ensure that the important issues affecting AAPI students are included in higher education policy decisions. When he was at South, he helped develop and build that grant. He also took it to the national level in his role as vice president. He's now president here at North Seattle Community College, where he continues to lead the development of student success programs to underserved communities. I'm very proud to introduce an incredible community and educational leader, plus the most committed person I've seen to ensuring access and success at the college level, Mark Mitsui.
Thank you, Dr. Wakefield. And if I've been able to contribute anything to the mission of engaging underserved students, particularly AAPI students, it's because I have a great boss. And when I brought the idea of pursuing Department of Education status as an AAPI minority serving institution, Jill immediately said, go for it. And today, there are 15 AAPI colleges across the country receiving funding from the Department of Education, reaching nearly 90,000 AAPI students, showing some impressive outcomes like 9,500 AAPI graduates last year, and contributing to President Obama's completion agenda. Well, you can't come to a college campus and not expect a quiz, so I have a question for you. It's true or false? Nearly half of all AAPI students in higher education attend the community colleges. How many think that's true? Okay, I'll take the rest of you think it's false. It's true. About 48% of all AAPI students in higher ed are in the community colleges. Here's another question. True or false? Some AAPI populations have significant percentages of people who have not earned a high school diploma. How many think that's true? We have a well-educated audience. According to the Care Commission, in some communities, between 34 and 39% of adults in the AAPI community do not have a high school diploma or the equivalent, and at least in one group, a third of the adults have less than a fourth grade education. That's why we are glad for the work of the White House Initiative on Asian American Pacific Islanders, the work of regional commissioners like Hayok, the work of the Governor's Commission on APA Affairs and Kendi, and the work of Seattle Community Colleges and Jill, to get past the model minority myth in order to serve our communities in need. I mention all of this because college success for all of our students is critical to having a sustainable society. And that's why both student success and sustainability are important values here at North Seattle Community College. In 2008, we signed the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, and the students funded a full-time sustainability coordinator. We developed over 40 courses and programs that include a sustainability component, such as environmental geology, sustainable business, green real estate, and sustainable and conventional energy and control technology. Our algae biodiesel project is exploring how different growing conditions affect algae grown for the purposes of creating biofuels. And the new Opportunity Center for Employment and Education, the new building over here on the corner, was designed and met the LEED gold level standards. Electronics student Dennis Scar, a veteran of both Iraq and Afghanistan, developed the EcoBike, which generates energy and learning during workouts in our Wellness Center, which is this building. And the college recently performed a major lighting retrofit that saved thousands of dollars and cut CO2 emissions by 145 metric tons. In addition to this work in sustainability, we're focusing on student success. For fall of 2010, North Seattle led the entire state of Washington Community and Technical College system in what are called momentum points, and these are the new measuring system and metrics for student success. These are just a few of the reasons why we're happy to host the White House initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders Summit on Sustainable Growth, and look forward to working to achieve that goal with many of you in the future. Now I'd like to acknowledge some of our special guests. We have with us several state legislators who have been constant, consistent advocates for the community and technical colleges. We're very, very privileged and pleased to have with us State Representative Phyllis Gutierrez-Kenny, State Representative Cindy Ryu, we will also later today have State Representatives Bob Hasegawa and Sharon Tomiko Santos. Oh, wait, Bob's here. Bob? We're also pleased to have State Representative Luis Moscoso. Luis. We have several trustees in the audience. Chancellor Wakefield already mentioned Trustee Shen and Trustee Asay. We also have from Shoreline Trustee Shobi Lau. And from Tacoma Community College, Fred Wang. We also have Julian Lowe of the Governor's Office here today. And Vice President of Admin Services from Bellevue College, Rachel Solomsas. Now I'd like to introduce a key member of the Obama White House to tell us more about the administration's work to engage diverse communities on key issues such as sustainable growth. As the Cabinet Secretary in the White House, Mr. Chris Lu is President Obama's primary liaison to the Cabinet departments and agencies helping to coordinate policy and communications with the executive branch and also the agencies in the federal government. He plays a critical role in managing the flow of information between the White House and the federal departments and in representing the interests of the Cabinet to the White House. He is one of President Obama's longest-serving advisors, starting in 2005 as legislative director for then Senator Obama, before becoming acting chief of staff in the U.S. Senate office. After Election Day 2008, Mr. Liu was named the executive director of the Obama-Biden Transition Project. His 15 years of government experience includes 8 years as deputy chief counsel of the House Government Reform Committee during the 2004 general election. He served as special advisor for communications for the Kerry Edwards presidential campaign. A graduate of Princeton University and Harvard Law School, Mr. Liu started his career as a law clerk to Judge Robert E. Cowan of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. He then spent 4 years as a litigation associate at Sidley & Austin in Washington, D.C. Please join me in welcoming our very special guest today and keynoter, Cabinet Secretary Chris Liu.
I'm trying to learn from Kendi, who I think had the mics right in her face, and move him down a little bit. Thank you, Mark, for that introduction and for hosting us this morning and today at this important summit. Thank you also for your leadership to the AAPI community. First, let me tell you how great it is to trade one Washington for another Washington. Not only is the weather better, it's actually a lot better. We got on a plane yesterday, it was like 90 degrees and with 70% humidity. And I know this is probably a little chilly for all of you, but it's just perfect for us. But I will also tell you that as an Asian American, it is a great thrill to be in a city with such a vibrant AAPI community. For me personally, this is a very special place. My dad was born in China. He moved to Taiwan. And then he emigrated to the United States in 1956. The ship that he took to the United States landed here in Seattle. 50 years ago, when my dad stopped here briefly in Seattle before boarding a Greyhound bus for Tennessee, it would have been difficult for him to imagine not only what his life would be, but what his son's life would be. It's really a wonderful country that we live in, and I'm proud to work for a president who understands that the strength of our country is its diversity. There's no better example of that than the 3 Asian Americans that we have serving in the president's cabinet. That is the most ever in history. Now, thank you. Since my job is to manage the cabinet, as Mark said, I'm often asked who my favorite cabinet member is. Now, I'm smart enough. I actually want to have a future in politics, and so I'm always very careful never to answer that question. But I will say this, one of the great thrills of my career has been working side by side with your former governor, our wonderful Secretary of Commerce, Gary Locke. He has just done, yes, please, let's. He has done a phenomenal job representing American businesses overseas, and he's going to be a fantastic representative for our country when he gets confirmed as ambassador to China. We've also borrowed a couple other great residents of this city. Ron Sims, our Deputy Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Ron, when he was the county executive for King County, really was at the forefront of the sustainability movement, and he's one of the reasons why it is such a high priority for the Obama administration. And we've also borrowed Gil Kurlikowski, your former police chief, as our drug czar, and he's doing fantastic work in that area as well. All 3 of these individuals have a lot in common. They are dedicated public servants. They embody the change that President Obama has talked about. And most importantly, they are incredible cheerleaders for this city. Every time I see one of them, they are always telling me how they wish they were back in Seattle and how I really have to come visit. Now, unfortunately, my job keeps me in D.C. way more than I really want, and that's kind of a shame. Because the kind of debate that often happens inside the Beltway and on 24-hour cable news doesn't capture the problems that real Americans are facing. It also doesn't embrace the kind of real progress that's being made around the country. That's why I jumped at the opportunity to come meet with all of you and talk about what the administration is doing on sustainable growth. Now, my job keeps me in D.C. far more than I'd like, but there is one great perk with the job. Whenever I need help or advice, I can always call up a member of the cabinet with a question. 2 years ago, I was preparing to give my first major speech in this job, and it was actually a commencement address. And I happened to run into the Vice President Biden, outside the Oval Office. And I said, Vice President, you give a lot of speeches. We know the Vice President likes to talk. And I asked him, what's your advice on giving a good graduation speech? And he said this to me, and he was very blunt, and he's a very blunt man. He said, don't worry, no one is there to see you. The professors have heard it before. The parents are there to watch their kids get their diplomas. And the graduates, well, they're either recovering from last night's party or they're getting ready for tonight's party. So his final words to me were to keep it short and simple. So I think about that advice a lot when I do my speaking, and especially when I'm coming here to a college campus. But I do want to keep my remarks short today because the smart people that are following me are really the experts on how to grow your businesses, on how to make your communities better. They're the real stars of today's summit, so I don't want to take away too much time from their presentations. But I would like to tell you a little bit about what the Obama administration has accomplished in the area of sustainable growth. In his State of the Union address in January, the president laid out an ambitious agenda for the coming year. But the important point he made was that the biggest challenge we face, the biggest battle we have, is not between Democrats and Republicans. It's the battle between the United States and the rest of the world. And only by coming together in a collaborative way, Democrats, Republicans, independents, federal, state, local officials, the private sector, the nonprofit sector, only if all of us come together can we lead in the 21st century. In that speech, the president laid out his plan for how to win the future. He said that we need to do 3 things. We need to out-innovate the rest of the world. We need to out-educate the rest of the world. And we need to out-build the rest of the world. And a critical part of out-innovating the rest of the world is promoting clean energy and sustainability. Since taking office, the President has been focused on a new course on energy and pursuing a strategy that will create a more secure energy future. An important part of that is clean energy and sustainability. Now, we've talked a lot about that, but let me give you a couple concrete examples. We have underway right now a global race to see who can manufacture these clean energy technologies. If you don't believe me, go to China, go to India, go to Europe. They're not sitting around waiting to figure out what the next source of energy is. They've embraced that. But the United States has the most dynamic economy in the world. We have the best workers in the world, and there's no reason why we can't lead that. And that's the reason why the President has set an ambitious goal for us. By the year 2035, we will generate 80% of our electricity from clean energy sources. He's also pushing for a clean energy standard that will provide the signal that investors need to move billions of dollars of capital off the sidelines and into the clean energy space. That will create jobs, and jobs is what this is all about. But it also reduces air pollution, it also reduces greenhouse gas emissions. We're already making great strides in this area. Across the federal government, we are promoting clean energy development by offering grants to renewable energy manufacturers. We're funding clean energy R&D. We're modernizing our infrastructure. We're building the world's largest solar plants on public lands, and we're opening the frontier for offshore wind development. Because of these efforts, we are on track to double our renewable energy by the year 2012. In the area of efficiency, one of the first actions that the President took was to direct the Environmental Protection Agency and the Transportation Department to create new fuel efficiency standards for cars. When those standards are complete, they will save 1.8 billion barrels of oil and will save the average driver thousands of dollars. On top of that, the President has set the goal of having 1 million electric vehicles on the road by the year 2015. We are also committed to increasing the energy efficiency of our homes and businesses. That can reduce pollution, it creates jobs, and it can lower electricity bills. Right here in Seattle, the Department of Energy is providing millions of dollars to homeowners so they can upgrade lighting and furnaces, water heaters, and windows. We've recently launched a Better Building initiative that will take steps to leverage private sector investment to make commercial buildings 20% more efficient. Upgrading the efficiency of these buildings can save American consumers and companies $40 billion a year on their utility bills. And that, when you save $40 billion for businesses, that allows them to grow, that allows them to invest more, that allows them to create more jobs. Just last week, we announced the first set of partners in this initiative. There were 14 partners who've committed more than $500 million and 300 million square feet to improving energy efficiency. One of those 14 initial partners is right here in Seattle. It's the Seattle 2030 District, which is an effort by 40 building owners and utilities, the City of Seattle, King County, and they're going to create the first large-scale, high-performing building district in the country. They've set ambitious goals for energy use, water use, greenhouse gases, and when it's complete, it's going to cover 23 million square feet of buildings in this city. That's really phenomenal. Now, we in the federal government know that we need to do our part as well. Some of you may know this, but the federal government is the largest consumer of energy in the country. We have 500,000 buildings and 600,000 vehicles. That's why the President has made it the responsibility of every federal agency to look for ways that they can cut their energy use. And we're doing that right here in Seattle. We're building a new Army Corps of Engineers facility here in Seattle that's going to reuse 150,000 feet of timber beams that used to be on the warehouse that was located on that property. They're also looking at ways to collect rainwater and create a geothermal heating system. The Thomas S. Foley Federal Courthouse, which is downtown, last year saved 385,000 gallons of water. And how did they do that? They simply changed the irrigation system for their landscaping, and they installed low-flow fixtures into the building. It's simple. Another local building, the Seattle Federal Center South Complex, is installing energy-efficient roof that's going to have 80% of it's going to be covered with solar panels. The King County Housing Authority is using federal money to install 213 solar panels on their public housing units. When that's done, that's going to be the largest array of solar panels in the entire state. Now, I have to say, coming from Washington, D.C., when I heard about all these solar panels in Washington State, I was a little skeptical. You guys aren't known for a lot of sunlight. But those that are in the know this full well. Seattle gets 70% of the sunlight that you get in Los Angeles. It is actually the perfect place for solar panels. But here's another point. This is not just an environmental issue, it's a jobs issue as well. All of this work to improve building efficiency requires people that know how to do energy audits, people that know how to do the construction work to retrofit buildings. Those are good paying jobs. They can't be outsourced to other countries. They have to be done here. And the education for that has to be done here. And that is why a critical part of this is the work that community colleges like North Seattle are doing to train the workers for the 21st century. And more importantly, or as importantly, we need to create the incentives for businesses to develop those technologies here in the United States. Because believe me, if they're not built here in the United States, they're going to be built in China, India, and Europe. But greater development of alternative energy sources and greater efficiencies in buildings is only part of the sustainability equation. In order to compete in the 21st century, we also need to figure out better ways to connect our workers and our families to education and employment opportunities. That's something that's very important to us in Washington, D.C., since we spend far too much of our time in traffic. But you all know this. Regions that embrace sustainable development, when you connect housing to jobs, you have a built-in competitive advantage in attracting new investment and new businesses. If you can plan your community smarter, that means that parents spend less time in their cars. It means they spend more time with their children. It means that more families live in safe and stable communities near good schools and good jobs. It means that more businesses have the capital, the access to the capital and the talent that they need to grow. Over the 2 years, under the leadership of Deputy Secretary Sims, 3 federal departments, Transportation, HUD, and EPA, have been trying to break down the silos that historically have stopped agencies from working together on this important initiative. This is important. At a time when federal dollars, federal budgets are tight, we have to maximize the amount of money that we use. And we have to make sure that we're using it as efficiently as possible. Right here in Seattle, the Puget Sound Regional Council has received a $5 million grant for their initiative called Growing Transit Communities. Now, what the money is going to be used to do is to plan communities around 100 new transit centers that are going to go up in this area over the next 20 years. And when you do that, that means schools, shopping, jobs are all congregated where the transportation networks are. And as I said, that reduces commuting times, it reduces transportation costs for people. Seattle's work in this area is also illustrating the President's commitment to using innovation and ideas from the local level. We want to have a bottom-up approach to solving problems. We are tired of the old Washington, D.C. approach of having the federal government dictate to all of you how you spend your money. If you were truly interested in a new energy future, we have to encourage this kind of locally focused thinking, what you all are doing here in Seattle. You all know what's best for your city. You know that what works in New York and Detroit doesn't work here in Seattle. But at the end of the day, and I say this whenever I travel around, the President knows that government can't be the answer to all of our problems. The problems are too extensive and government resources are too scarce. That's why the work that all of you are doing in your communities, in your businesses, and that's why this summit is so important. All of you believe in the mission of clean energy and sustainability. The crazy part is you guys in Washington State get this, and we in Washington, D.C. don't get it. We still have politicians arguing now about what our energy future should be like. You all have embraced it. You all understand that sustainability is important for our energy security, it's important for safeguarding our environment, and it's important for creating the good-paying jobs in the United States that we need for the 21st century. As I was preparing my remarks and talking to different sustainability experts in the federal government, They kept telling me over and over again how Seattle is a leader. And when I asked them why, they told me this. They said, Seattle has had a history of enlightened leaders. They've had businesses who have been willing to think outside the box. And most importantly, they have people, they have communities that are not only interested in preserving their family's future, but safeguarding their children's future. And that's a level of foresight that you just don't see in other parts of this country. So on behalf of President Obama, we applaud you for the work you're doing, and we look forward to being your partners in this important initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Christina Lagdameo, and I'm the Deputy Director of the White House Initiative on Asian Americans Pacific Islanders. And we are so proud to have a leader in Chris who is constantly by our side. And I have to say, you just convinced me to move out to Seattle. So I'm not going back to DC. No, I'm just kidding. But his remarks are always so genuine. And this is what it means to be a leader in our community. And all of you should be very proud of the work that we have in someone like Chris. So thank you very much. So at this time, actually, we have time to take a 5-minute break. We're going to set up the next plenary. And we encourage you to network very quickly, take a break, and then come back in 5 minutes. Thank you.
No, but it rolls.
Oh. It rolls. Well, we have to get it down now.
Rad. This is kind of heavy, huh? Yeah, I've moved it before. Okay.
Well, actually, if you want, we just put it off to the side so we don't have to get it to the ground. Here, how can I help?
Find only two.
Yeah. Congratulations on being an NFPC. That's really terrific. And yeah, and thanks so much for hosting.
You don't want it up here anymore?
Down? For lunch it will be. So do you just want to leave it on top? That's fine. You just leave it on the side on top. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's good. told one or two people to be back there along with me because there are two microphones sitting on the stands. And those are just ready to grab and walk around.
Great, thank you.
to move the program along.
You need to move him, so you should escort him out. Could folks start making their way back to their seat? We're going to start the next plenary. So please start making your way. Thank you.
You should sit on one end or the other, no?
Well,
Aren't you the moderator?
I'm the moderator, but Calvin suggested.
In the middle? All right.
Break us up, huh? Put the important people in the middle.
He wanted
He doesn't want to sit near us, that's
he
why.
wanted some color, then, some color and color. Yes, dear. Yeah, sure. Sure, okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I'll wait for principals and then we go. Hey, you look good. Whatever. Like,
Something like that.
you too.
I'm sorry.
There's Sharon right there.
It doesn't matter.
All right.
It doesn't matter, really.
Do you know, have you met her?
I have not.
Sharon.
As folks are settling, I just want you to know that the plenaries, the sessions after the plenary, the rooms will be identified by all of our volunteers in the yellow jackets, and I'll let folks know that afterwards.
These conferences.
I know, exactly. Yes. Yes, I will. And so to go to you guys, and the yellow, they know? Okay. I'm going to tell everybody everything that you promised. Yeah, I'll. Okay, for the first time, we're going to go ahead and start ahead of the agenda. We just have so much we want to talk about today that we want to make sure we keep the program going. And we have such great experts seated next to me today that I think it's important that we give ample time for everyone. Also, again, after this session, I'll go through we weren't able to list all the rooms on the agenda, but our wonderful volunteers from the community college in the bright yellow jackets that are bringing sunshine here, will lead you after this plenary to your various sessions. And so welcome back, as Chris was saying earlier, President Obama reestablished our initiative, the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, specifically because he believes in the community. And this is one thing we should remember about our president, not only that he's our first black president, we'll claim him as our first Asian president because he was born in Hawaii and grew up there, but also is that he's a community organizer at heart. You know, when he was just 25, like some of our students here today. He, came out of college and was making $13,000 as a community organizer in the south side of Seattle. And he often talks about that with passion, and it is what drives a lot of the policies that he brings to the table, because he always asks, well, what does the community think? And is this really going to fly? Like, he knows what it takes to get things done. And that is exactly the role of each of you in this room. So we have future presidents in this room. We can feel that. And each of you are here today because you are the leaders in this community and you're the connectors. We need each of you to go back and connect with the huge networks that we know all of you have. And that is exactly why you were invited. So I'm going to ask 3 things of you for today. One is to connect. We tried to provide ample time, and Mark has been so wonderful with this space. He said you could work out in between, at the Wellness Center and run around the track, and maybe find a friend here, someone that you have not met. Usually these are reunions and we like to huddle together. But I encourage you to meet with someone you don't know. And, someone from the other side of Seattle, or someone from DC or from Oregon. We have some folks here. And just make some new connections. The second thing is to share. Whatever you've learned today, a couple of things especially from our experts today on this panel, in the workshops, and bring it back to those who couldn't be here, especially those who are struggling in different ways in their jobs, or not having jobs, who just couldn't be here for some reason, who really need the information that we're giving today. And then finally, to inspire those people and let them know their potential to do great things, because that is why you're here, because you know your worth, you know your value as a leader, as an organizer. You know the power that you have to do this work. And we just need to show that power in other people and give them, just hold the mirror up to them and say, you have the power to get things done also. And I'm going to connect you to some cool people who can help us do that. So that's what we're going to do today. So I have some really neat folks here, and I'm going to introduce them very quickly, and then we're just going to get on some rapid-fire good questions to get you information that you need to know. So to my right is Calvin Goings, who has a fan from Velma Valoria. Was a really good fan to have. And he is the appointed regional administrator for the Small Business Administration for Region 10. So he is your go-to man because he's responsible for overseeing small business programs and initiatives for 4 states, Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and your beautiful state of Washington. And Calvin has extensive experience in the public and private sector as an elected official for nearly 2 decades. Doesn't look that old. As a county council member and a Washington state senator, and as a county fire commissioner. So we should feel safe in Calvin's hands today. To my very far left is Lisa Hasegawa, and she has a lot of fans also. She's the executive director of the National Coalition for Asian Pacific American Community Development. And this is a national advocacy organization dedicated to meeting the housing and community development needs of low-income individuals. And she is fierce. So she's like the epitome of connector right here. Like, you can't even talk to her without her saying, do you know blah, 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 and blah, 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 and so, and you should talk to. So if you need to be connected, you should definitely go to Lisa, because she'll connect you to everyone in DC. Her husband is laughing in the front row because he's like, I know, go. That's exactly how he met her, exactly. So she is fantastic because not only does she have the organizing experience on the ground, but she also has federal experience. She actually had our job under the Clinton administration in the White House initiative, and was, surprise, surprise, the community outreach person. And she did a phenomenal job there. So we're lucky to have her. And then finally, to my left is Dennis McLerran, who is another regional administrator for Region 10, but with the Environmental Protection Agency. And Dennis oversees the implementation and enforcement of federal environmental rules, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and the regulations. And he has over 20 years of experience, again, doesn't look like that, as a fierce advocate, attorney, and administrator. He's served as the executive director of the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency. He's the attorney for the city of Port of Towson, and director of the Seattle Department of Construction and Land Use. So with that, we're going to start, and I just want to ask our panelists, we have many people here who are civic leaders, organizers, business people, practitioners, and in a few sentences or more, please describe the work that your office does and why people here should be interested in your work, and how they can connect to that. Start with Calvin.
Well, thank you very much, Christina, and thank you all very much for being here today. I know you've all taken time away from your businesses to be here, and thank you for making an investment in sharing and learning a little bit about some of the resources that exist. I should explain the noisemakers here in front. It was a tough legislative session, and we have a group of state legislators all sitting together. So the folks in yellow jackets probably should keep your eyes on this group here towards the front. We at the Small Business Administration are focused on helping small businesses start, grow, and succeed. And so my goal here this morning, and with some of our staff and some of our follow-up sessions, is to provide you tools to help your small business stay successful. Or those of you who may have small business clients, maybe chambers of commerce, CPAs, attorneys, to give you tools to add to your toolkit as we all work together to keep our economy on a sustainable path towards a full recovery. No surprise to anybody in this room how important small businesses are to our economy. About half of all working Americans today work for a small business. And 2/3 of all new jobs over the past 15 years have been in small business. So you all are the key to our economic recovery. And that's why we at the SBA are so proud to work arm in arm with you to start, to grow, and succeed. We like to focus on what we like to call the 3 C's at SBA: capital, contracts, and counseling. First, capital. We help small businesses receive financing for their startup, their growth, and their expansion phases. In contracting, we help small businesses compete for and win over $100 billion a year in federal purchase orders. And in counseling, we help small businesses thrive by putting together seminars, workshops, mentoring opportunities to give them the tools and resources they need. So I really look forward in the next half hour or so going a little more in depth on those 3's: capital, contracts, and counseling. And again, really appreciate the chance to be here with you this morning. Thank you.
Well, also, I'd like to welcome all of you here today. It's great to see so many faces in the audience, and many of them familiar faces. And there are a number of my staff here as well that are manning some of the community resource tables outside, and also that hopefully you can network with today. But a little bit about EPA. Our mission is to ensure that all Americans are protected from significant risks to human health and the environment where they live, learn, and work. And I think most people are familiar with EPA for its regulatory mission, but today I wanted to talk a little bit more about our community engagement, our grants, our job training programs, and so on, because those aren't as well known as our regulatory focus. When you see headlines about EPA, it typically is about EPA working on a Superfund site or EPA regulating a coal-fired power plant, but many don't know that we really do engage with communities, and we give out millions of dollars in grants to engage with communities on things. So things like our CARE grant program, the Community Action for a Renewed Environment program, their local organizations, including nonprofits, businesses, and schools and governments, can create partnerships, and we've given out over $1 million in Region 10 alone in those care grants since 2005. And one of the ones I wanted to cite is in 2007, the International District Housing Alliance got a care grant, and it was a really excellent example of outreach in the community to improve awareness of toxics and to improve community engagement around toxics issues. We've got a brownfields program as well that is giving out money to state and local governments and community organizations and businesses to take contaminated sites and redevelop those into local opportunities for economic development and jobs. And that's a program that we've given out about $100 million in grants in Region 10 since 1995. So opportunities there. We've got a sustainable materials management program that we're working on nationwide, but here in the region we're doing some great things that hopefully I'll get a chance to talk about, working with folks as large as the Seahawks and the Mariners and Major League Baseball and football. I think if you go to Safeco Field, it's hard to find a garbage can anymore. Everything gets recycled or composted, and that's part of our work with Major League Sports. But we also work with small businesses in the hospitality industry and others to identify ways to save money through reducing waste and reducing energy use, and that's one of the programs that we're quite proud of. We have a partnership for sustainable communities with HUD and DOT that is trying to focus their monies to be consistent with all three agencies' priorities, and that's an Obama administration initiative that we're, again, very proud of and see linking programs together in ways that haven't been done in the federal government previously to really develop sustainable communities and make sure that the missions of all the agencies are coordinated and collaborated on. And also our Superfund site cleanup community involvement initiatives. We do a lot of work to provide funding to groups and connect communities with what's going on Superfund cleanup sites like the Duwamish, the lower Duwamish, where we're going to have a big cleanup moving forward over the next year. Environmental Justice Small Grants Program, where we're giving out small grants to groups working on environmental justice issues in their communities. I could go on with the programs that we've got, but many people aren't aware of those, and those are things that hopefully you can connect with some of my staff today to find out what the opportunities are for community groups, for small businesses, for even things like job training. We're going to be announcing some grants in the near future that have job training opportunities available as well. I'll stop with that and pass it on to Lisa.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. It's very exciting for me to be here. This is one of the Asian American and Pacific Islander serving institutions, as you heard earlier today, and that was something that I had been working on for quite some time when it was just sort of an idea, going back to Patsy Mink when she was in Congress. This was a dream of hers to see API serving institutions become a reality, so for me to be here today and actually see it and be able to be a part of this is really fabulous. The city of Seattle has a strong history in terms of the leadership that you've been providing at the national level. Some of you may have been at the reception last night. Martha Cho, who's now at the Gates Foundation, was the first chair of the President's Advisory Commission on APIs under President Clinton, and as Christina said, I was the community liaison for the office at the time, and it was great to see so much of the amazing ideas and leadership that has come out of Seattle. A few people in the audience today, national capacity, we were born here in Seattle, so it's a good homecoming for us. It was about 12 years ago when 15 community-based organizations across the country that were focusing on housing, community, economic development gathered here, came up with the name National Coalition for Asian Pacific American Community Development. It's a very long name, but it's National Capacity for short, because we do capacity building. And the most compelling reason why you should be involved with national capacity is because there's so much going on at the federal level with so many federal agencies. We work with the Department of Labor, HUD, National Endowment for the Arts, EPA, SBA, Treasury, Department of Health and Human Services, Transportation, Commerce, FDIC, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, Federal Housing Finance Administration. All of those federal agencies we work with national capacity to really try to be that bridge to get the information about the work and the resources resources of these federal agencies to community-based organizations, and also the other way around, to really lift up all of the amazing wisdom and expertise and best practices that you all are pushing forward with every day to really bring those to Washington, D.C. One of the beliefs of national capacity, I think, one of the reasons why I love working for this organization is that it really values, the wisdom of local folks and believes that it's your expertise and wisdom that can really drive and influence federal policy. So I could see all the lights going on in Chris's eyes while he was going through all of the sessions yesterday, because it is true. He represents Asian Americans, in the halls of the White House, and but he truly doesn't have the opportunity to really connect with groups that are doing the work on the ground every day in his community. So I think it was a connection of his personal and his professional life. So that was really great. National capacity, we just had our convention where we had about 300 people in Washington, D.C., community organizations, community organizers like yourselves, to really go to Washington, D.C. to interact with, yes, Congress, yes, the federal agencies, but most powerfully with each other. So the organizations that founded national capacity here in Seattle included the Interim Community Development Association. If Hayok is still in the room, she is one of our board members. And before that, Ken Katahira. The Seattle Chinatown International District Preservation and Development Authority, I got it. Michael Winkler-Chin is on our board, as well as Sue Taoka, former board member. We also work really closely with IDHA, who was mentioned earlier, International District Housing Alliance, and Lua Pritchard, I know you're out there somewhere. Formerly Korean Women's Alliance, now with the Asian Pacific Cultural Center. And Lua has also been on our board. So we have benefited a lot from the leadership here in Seattle. And I encourage you to get involved with national capacity, to network with other organizations, small business leaders, community-based groups across the country that are doing what you're doing every day. And we can only be more powerful together to really lift up that it's not just going on here in Seattle and Chicago and Twin Cities, etc., but it's going on across the country. We have something to share. Our voices are more powerful together. The reason why I got involved with national capacity after working at the initiative is I really felt that there was not a way to more formally connect up the voices and the wisdom of community-based leaders like yourselves to the federal government and to Congress. And so it's exciting to be here. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Told you. See, she just named like half the people in this room. It's just like the Oscars. So if folks could only, it's a lot of stuff out there in the federal government, as you know, as Lisa just listed all the agencies. If the people here could only invest in one of your programs, and they don't have a lot of time, they don't have the resources, which one should it be and why?
Definitely capital. But just real quickly, I do want to introduce my good friend and colleague. Jennifer Clark is the President's regional advocate, and Jennifer has the ability to help small businesses, those of you in the room who are having challenges with federal agencies, not just SBA, but EPA or IRS. So if we're doing something wrong, please see Jennifer. If we're doing something right, I'm free after the meeting. So I just want to introduce Jennifer Clark. In order to have a sustainable business, you first have to have a business that is economically sustainable itself, and that means financing. Access to capital, no surprise to anybody in this room, is the most important ingredient for a successful small business. And through the Recovery Act and the Small Business Jobs Act, the SBA received some new tools to help keep the economy flowing, help keep capital flowing in the worst turndown since the 1930s. In fact, with the Recovery Act and the Small Business Jobs Act, SBA has been able to back over 6,000 loans worth about $2 billion right here in the Pacific Northwest. So let me give you a quick example of a local small business that has leveraged that SBA financing to grow a great green business. Jeffrey Wang is the owner of Ketterman's Bakery. He had a dream to create a business that sold great products using sustainable ingredients. He started with one small business, but a great plan, a great vision, and a $100,000 SBA-backed loan. Today, Mr. Wang has grown to over 6 locations, and his products are now featured in Whole Food stores. So again, SBA's 7A and 504 loan programs, and there's a breakout session a little later with Nancy Porzio, our Seattle District Director, to go into detail and some of the others on SBA financing. You know, with a great vision, a great business plan, and some financing tools from SBA, that'd be the one place I'd start with.
Well, this is a really tough question, and I cheated already by naming about 6 programs that I'd like you to get engaged in, and we have so many programs that are great, but the one that I chose to identify here is our Sustainable Materials Management Initiative, and the reason I brought that forward is that I think lots of homeowners and lots of businesses are stressed in terms of meeting their water bills, their energy bills, their ability to keep their businesses and their home budgets under control. And our Sustainable Materials Management Initiative is a way of working together with communities and businesses to look at how you can put simple steps into place that actually reduce your utility bills through reducing water use, reducing energy use, help the environment, help your community, help our resources go farther and reduce the amount of capital investment we have to make in new landfills and in new water resources and that sort of thing. So that's one of the programs where as I said earlier, we're partnering with everyone from big organizations like Major League Baseball and the National Football League right down to the hospitality industry and small businesses and even homeowners on the kinds of things that people can do that can make a difference in their community and make a difference in their bottom line and their personal pocketbooks in reducing the amount of waste they produce, reducing the amount of water they use, and reducing the amount of energy they use. And we see it as a win-win-win opportunity for everybody. So if you do get a chance to engage with us on that one, I think that's a great program to work with us on.
I'm going to kind of flip your question around, Christina. I'm going to be speaking right now, I think, to the federal agency representatives in the room. I would ask of you to really think differently about all of the amazing community-based organizations that work in Asian American and Pacific Islander and immigrant communities and lift those up as models for everyone. And so I think that I'll just give you a few examples on housing. You know, I was just over at ACRS yesterday, the Asian Community Counseling and Referral Services, and they have this, LEED certified building, which was just beautiful and amazing. And at the same time, there are examples of new construction like that, community-based organizations leading the charge. And also, you have a lot of preservation, housing preservation efforts that are not lifted up as green best practices. It's always about LEED new construction. It's about that and also about preservation. So we're supposed to be talking about sustainability, and I think that one of the things that often gets overlooked in this big hoopla about, transportation-oriented development, et cetera, there are federal policies and these new initiatives that oftentimes are detrimental to the existing communities, the historic neighborhoods, the dense residential housing that can be preserved as opposed to demolished and rebuilt. So there are a lot of sustainability practices that are coming out of immigrant communities, that are coming out of the Chinatowns. I hear that some of the Chinatowns are they have the highest use of public transportation already. So these are not new things. It doesn't have to be new things. It's about lifting up what is already happening in the ID, in communities, in Chinatowns, here in Seattle right now today. And so I would just ask the federal agency folks to really lift those up and shout them from the rooftops to Washington, D.C. And for all of you community-based organizations, what you do is sustainable development, and what you've been doing to preserve the ID and the Chinatown community and doing and integrating the green into the green elements into the work that you do should be really models for the country, not just other API communities. So that would be my ask.
See, she's great. She's your voice in DC for you. If you could think of the most innovative community project or green business venture that you've come across, if you could share that and what the audience could learn from that innovation.
First of all, message received, Lisa, loud and clear. Thank you. There are a lot of innovative small businesses in Region 10 that we have a chance to work with, but I think one that really stands out is Faro Construction. Faro Construction has utilized SBA's contracting, training, and certifications to literally transform their small business. As you might imagine, the federal government buys a lot of stuff each year. In fact, Uncle Sam is the single largest purchaser of goods and services in the world, from paper clips to Boeing tankers and everything in between. We at SBA are tasked with ensuring at least 23%, or about $100 billion a year, of those purchase orders go to small businesses. And this really is a win-win situation. The federal government gets to work with innovative, nimble small businesses, and small business owners receive those federal contracts which drive their revenues. So Faro Construction started back in 2002 and has really grown in size and in scope to perform in residential, commercial, and the federal marketplace. Last year, for example, Faro Construction started 2 new divisions, logistics and innovative practices. Through their innovative practices division, Faro Construction has developed new cutting-edge technologies and techniques which protect and sustain the environment during all phases of construction. As a result, Faro Construction has grown by over 400% in a pretty tough environment for construction companies. So entrepreneurs like Danny, and Danny is here today, I believe, understand how a solid business plan, aggressive marketing, and SBA trainings and certifications can literally transform and grow a business. And I know there's a breakout session on government contracting with SBA folks as well. So that'd be one of the sustainable businesses with, I think, a great tool from SBA.
Well, this is another unfair question. Asking us to bring it down to 1 is really tough. But and we've got so many examples in this region, everything from McKinstry that's saving money at businesses through what they call the free lunch program, where you can save energy and they'll come in and finance a package for you and so on. But the one I wanted to focus on is a more community-based one, and it's up in Bellingham. We're a large urban area here, but I think sometimes we can learn things from smaller communities that are organizing sustainability initiatives. And up in Bellingham, there's a group called Sustainable Connections that is focused on bringing people together to use local products, local businesses, buy local, and then make connections between all of those people. The Sustainable Connections group actually is a nonprofit that links businesses and farms and restaurants and communities together to really build synergy around buying local, using local products, reducing emissions, and creating a sustainable community there in a very, very unique way. We've been involved at EPA in the Whatcom County Energy Challenge that Sustainable Connections has put together, but in watching that group and the way they've connected their community and the businesses and the individuals to use those businesses and create a truly sustainable effort up there to reduce energy use, reduce transport, have healthy foods for people in the community is a stunning effort. And I'd say it's something that's very replicable in the neighborhoods in Seattle and in other areas. We've got lots of local farmers and lots of local businesses that can connect in those ways. And for me, that was really an inspirational effort to watch up there and see how successful they've been.
Gosh, that's hard. We have 100 community-based organizations across the country in 17 states, all of who are doing amazing things, so it's a little difficult to pick. But I will highlight one effort here in Seattle that is, I think, really hopefully going to be doing a lot of really interesting stuff that the rest of us around the country can learn from. So I'll call out another person I haven't called out, Tony Toe from Home Site. And one of the initiatives I think that Chris mentioned earlier is a Sustainable Communities Initiative, which is a collaboration between EPA, Department of Transportation, and HUD. And that was an effort to really try to get federal agencies that never talk to each other to work together and to jointly fund some efforts on a regional level to really look at more holistically what does it mean and what does it take to build a sustainable community. And who was leading the charge for that? He mentioned Ron Sims, Deputy Secretary of HUD. And I think that that was a perfect example of his the knowledge and insight that he gained about what was possible here in Seattle when he was King County Executive, when he was working with the Department of Public Health, to really look at lifting up the fact that where you lived and the zip code that you lived in was determining your health status and how long you lived and all of these other kinds of indicators. And so I think that he took that example and those experiences and actually infiltrated that throughout federal government. And the one thing that was really unique about that is that HUD, I think, put equity at the center of that. It wasn't just about getting federal agencies to work together, but Tony Toe and some of the community development and housing groups, I think, really held the applicant that was here for this region accountable to those equity values, and really are trying right now to make that real. And I think the rest of us across the country are looking to Seattle, no pressure, Tony, to figure out what are some of those tools to put equity at the center of some of these federal government initiatives. So I would just lift that up as something that we're looking at, because I can tell you similar organizations tried to do the same for other unnamed applications that were not successful, and other organizations, I would say, were successful in getting the funding, but were still uncertain about the inclusion of immigrants and Asian Americans and communities of color in some of the sustainable communities grants that actually were funded. I won't name them, but I think that Seattle is an example where you had the leadership, where equity was at the center. You have practitioners who were part of that mix. So I would just lift that up if you guys didn't know that already.
Seattle also has great wine, I've discovered. I went to South Seattle Community College, and as a gift, the students gave me wine that they made. And this was a sustainable program. I didn't drink it there, but I was very impressed because it was locally grown, organic grapes, and it was a program that a lot of students, they were economically challenged and were able to go through this program and produce great wine. So how should we be measuring success for sustainability at the community level?
You said you didn't drink it there. Okay. Measuring sustainability, that's a tough question for the Small Business Administration. So we really view and judge sustainability at the local level with the creation of good family wage jobs. And in order to have good family wage jobs, you have to have businesses that have the tools and the resources they need to be successful, whether that's at the very startup level or as they grow and expand. And so that's why I always tell small business owners that if you don't have a counselor, let me step back, if you don't have an SBA counselor, we can't do anything about your private life or your marriage, unfortunately. But if you don't have an SBA counselor, you should. Because our data shows that when entrepreneurs have a long-term relationship with an SBA counselor, they're able to grow faster than their competition and expand into new markets quicker than their competition. And we're very lucky in the Northwest to have a robust system of wraparound counseling services. In fact, we have over 70 centers across the 4-state Northwest region. And we're very proud in the state of Washington to have a great partner in the state legislature who helps fund those small business development centers. So let me give you a quick example of a local small business that has leveraged the resources at one of these centers to grow and thrive. Ko-Am Korean American Broadcasting Company is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Ko. When they started out several years ago, they broadcast for only 3 hours a day. But Mrs. Ko visited our local women's business center here in Seattle and really got the information, the resources, the tools to grow that business. Background information such as cash flow management and how to put together a very aggressive marketing plan. As a result of this solid foundation at the Women's Business Center, Ko-Am Broadcasting has now been able to secure private equity financing and a solid trajectory to growth, resulting in broadcasting over 24 hours a day and a 600% increase in subscribers. So advisors at our local centers are standing by. Our services are free. You simply have to call and make an appointment and make your success story a reality through one of our centers.
So I'm going to answer this one in a little bit different way. We in the government like to measure things. You know, we like to measure outputs, how much energy is used and how much water is saved and that sort of thing. And we can do that in terms of measures of sustainability. But what I think is truly important at the bottom with respect to a sustainable community and a measure of success is whether it's a place that businesses prosper, whether it's a place that people are looking to as an opportunity for economic development. It's a place that our kids want to live and come back to after they go to college. It's a place that we can enjoy a quality of life. So to me, sustainability is about how we work together in our neighborhoods and our communities to make them places that are vital and healthy, both economically and environmentally, and are places that people want to stay, want to see prosper, and to me a really important measure is that they're places that are vibrant because our kids want to come back and live there. So those are real measures of sustainability for me.
Ditto. You, Christina, difficult question. I feel like that's what is the mission of national capacity? You know, for us, I think sustainability, you know, neighborhoods like the Chinatowns, the ID, the little Tokyos, little Saigons, the Thai towns, the little Phnom Penhs across the country, they would be preserved and really held up as places that are of value to not only the communities that live there and still go back there for groceries, et cetera, but for society. I think that would be, to me, one measure. Housing regardless of income, available quality housing regardless of income, vibrant small businesses. I mean, what makes up a lot of those places that I just mentioned? It's the small businesses, right? Those mom and pop stores. And so, you know, I was just talking to Calvin yesterday, and I'll just say this one thing that I'm going to follow up with him with. There's no tools in a lot of the federal regulations to look at the impacts of federal investments like transportation initiatives. There's no tools to measure or to require them to look at the impact that those efforts are going to have on minority small businesses. They have to look at the impacts on minority residents, but not on minority small businesses. Well, what does that mean? Then you can just barrel right through the ID and build, you know, and wipe it out. And as long as it's not, you know, impacting minority residents, you know, small businesses, who cares? So there's no, right now, I mean, I think those fights are being fought, you know, community to community, but there are some federal tools that could really change that. I think that, you know, access to healthy foods, many of the neighborhoods that we work in are not just Asians living there or Pacific Islanders. They're very diverse, and I think that that's also a measure of a sustainable, healthy community. Language accessibility, good information for our communities to really make good choices for their families. I would include those.
So those, hopefully you heard something that your organization is doing, and so you consider yourselves a success. We do. We need to know what you're doing so that we can replicate it at the federal level. And so I'd encourage you to go to www.whitehouse.gov/AAPI and communicate with us through there to highlight your programs also and what is working that are showing how we can be sustainable in our communities. So we are at our last moments, and we're going to make it real, bring it back to Washington, D.C. style, and do some rapid response questions. So get your microphone ready. Lisa, get your own microphone. We just need to hear very quickly from these brilliant people here. So, first question, what is the most important book or article everyone should read doing this type of work?
I'm going to break the rules a little bit. I picked a website, the Washington Clean Tech Alliance, a wonderful organization for those in small business interested in clean tech, wacleantech.org, wacleantech.org. Great information.
Okay, electronic books count.
All right. Well, I'm going to say Necessary Revolution by Peter Senge. It's a book that states that business leaders have to rethink their approach to the environment, focusing on insights from successful innovators, creative solutions, and practical approaches to meeting those challenges. It's a great book.
Gosh, I'm going to be geeky and say everybody should read the publication that we put out 10 years ago, the Access to Advocacy and Partnerships, AAPI partnerships. The White House Initiative on AAPIs put out a report about 10 years ago that really gave a lot of really good information about the federal agencies, and I know it's potentially dry reading, but we just need more community practitioners to understand the ins and outs of federal agencies so that we can get feedback and really interact substantively with the White House Initiative and with federal agencies who, when they ask for your advice and your recommendations, we have something to say.
Yeah, that was a good plug. I'll love you for that. We actually are updating that resource, so again, go to our website to look for that. What is the most important documentary or movie everyone should watch doing this type of work?
Well, I'm a dad, so my world is shaped by our son. And so I picked a cartoon based on Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. It's about truffle trees being cut down so there's no more food for the barbaloops. And it really is a great way of teaching sustainability to a 3-year-old. So The Lorax, must-see watching.
Okay.
So mine is Annie Leonard's Story of Stuff. It's a 20-minute short film that you can get to on the web by just going to www.storyofstuff.com. And it's not about necessarily buying less stuff, but buying differently and thinking about the unseen environmental and public health impacts to make more sustainable purchasing decisions.
A village called Versailles. It's a post-Katrina story about the Vietnamese community there, and we are working with Mayor Queen of Vietnam Community Development Corporation and the Vietnamese American Youth of Louisiana. Is that what it is? And they're doing some amazing work down there, and I think that the leadership and the organizing from New Orleans was unexpected and has been an inspiration.
That was another great plug. We actually did some really great work in New Orleans because, you know, the refugees there literally went from the Mekong Delta to the Mississippi Delta and maintained their lives of fishing. And they were hit by Katrina, and then they were hit by the Gulf spill. And it really hurt our community because they couldn't speak English and they were trying to get loans and access resources, but we had this huge language barrier. So just wanted to highlight, I swear I didn't plug that tell Lisa to say that, but the initiative was there making sure we were linking them to federal resources. So who is your hero in this field and why?
I actually think the term hero is often overused. And when we set up a hero, they're human just like the rest of us, and we're bound to be disappointed. So I actually think all of us have a role to play in sustainability. I think it's the small steps that each of us take on a daily basis that when you add them up has the most change. So that's what I think.
Good answer.
It's another tough question. I have a lot of heroes. Lisa Jackson, my boss, is one of my heroes. She's incredible. But a local hero for me has been Ron Sims. Ron, I've been around for about 30 years in local government working on various issues, and every time I had an initiative around sustainability that I needed a champion for, Ron was there. And he's continued that as he has gone on to the federal government. He's going to come back, and we're going to see some more stuff out of him, I hope, locally. But he's really been a true hero for me over the years.
That's so hard. I would say Paige Barber. She's no longer with us, but she was a board member who she's Native Hawaiian woman from Hawaii who basically took my hands and was like, you have to do this work to really bring together Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, and API, local community-based organizations to connect them to Washington, D.C. So she'd be my hero. And
Okay, last question. If you had one wish granted for this field, what would it be?
The average person makes at least 500 individual choices a day. I'm going to be consistent here. And if you multiply that by the number of days, weeks, years, I mean, literally we have the choice to make thousands of decisions that can have an immediate impact. And so I think my wish is that folks are mindful about the decisions they make and the impacts those decisions have.
Wow, Calvin, you stole mine. But mine is really essentially the same, but it's a little bit different in that what I would like to see is sustainability to just become really mainstream. That people think about the resource implications of their choices. They see the bottom line pocketbook impacts that are positive from reducing their waste and reducing their materials use, and that it becomes a way of life and a way of doing business, and it's not viewed as some fuzzy thing, that it's really just the way we operate.
Okay, this is going to be kind of corny too. My dream, my wish is that there was a website. Maybe it's going to be Facebook, I don't know. But if there was some way that we could capture all of the wisdom in this room and in communities across the country to be able to connect with each other and to connect with federal agencies. And I would just add one more thing. I want everybody in this room to just, if I know you're so committed to doing local work, but if you could just spend 1 or 2% or a few hours of each week, or even a few hours a month on thinking about federal policy and advocacy work, it would have huge ripple effects, I think, across the country.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause for that inspiration. Thank you to our great enlightened speakers, as Chris said. So we're on to our next break, and as I said, talk to the folks in the yellow jacket to find out where your room is. They're in the it's either going to be in the education building across the way or in the library. And Lisa was not calling us corny, but I will end with a quote by our great philosopher, Lao Tzu, on the lines of sustainability. And he said, "To know when you have enough is to be rich beyond measure." So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Nice job, Lisa. Nice to meet you.
Yes.